we're back.
Dang, y'all almost saw my little pre-show dance,
Oh God, not the pre-show
but
dance.
I caught it before we went
Is that
live.
really a thing? Is that really a thing?
It's just a little shoulder shimmy.
Okay, well, we got a lot to get into, and the biggest question that I guess a lot of people are going to be asking is,
hmm
was Chairman Powell correct?
We're gonna find out.
All right, well, let's just get into it because we got a lot to discuss, and we ain't got a lot of time. What's up, y'all? I am Mark Monroe, accompanied by my wonderful co host, co producer, and co creator in all things galactic. Give it up for none other than the wonderful.
It's Jill and Juicy in the place to be. What does it, cousins? On this fine Tuesday.
And welcome to
Wait a
Executive
minute.
Education. Let's get started. All right, all right, all right. All right. So we got a lot to like discuss because a lot has been happening.
hmm
I was actually making a video last week, so I made actually two videos, but then I was just like, let me just see how this all plays out. I just want to see like, am I still spot on or am I, missing a few things here and there? And sure enough, I may just release it anyways, maybe in a short form version, but yeah, so it was really about the Fed and what is it that I expected from CPI data.
hmm
And if you go back to some of the older videos, like earlier, like maybe around like August/September,
Of
we
this
kind of
year?
spoke about CPI. Yeah, well, we
Okay.
kind of spoke about like inflation going into the close of the year, and I kind of slightly discussed about like some of the challenges that we may face, and then on top of that, I discuss, hey, if we see that CPI or inflation starts to come down, and then if you go back even earlier in the year, one of the things that I had mentioned was, hey, there's some really lagging indicators within the inflation numbers that we normally typically don't see because of the fact that it takes a while for it to enter into the system. Well, let's just say this. Housing entered the chat.
Remarkable.
housing has
Not
housing
you.
has now entered the chat. But you know what? I'd be remiss if I didn't say giving out a huge shout out to our cousin Char, in which they say hi
Hey, Star.
cousins. So thank you for being first in the chat. We salute you, and we don't forget about y'all. Come on now, this is who we are. All right, so yeah, so housing has now entered the chat, which is interesting because I guess nobody kind of like expected to. I think nobody expected like any of the issues to really come about.
hmm
And it's kind of interesting because when we look at like that data from housing, of course renters markets, and then on top of that, what you're getting from not only renting but also from hotels. So you're starting to see those prices start to come down, and then on top of that, you also saw, I think it's Airbnb. Their prices have also started to come down a little bit as well.
They
So
definitely have.
you
I
know,
was just looking. I was looking for Airbnb in Portugal, and a couple of weeks ago, or no, like a few weeks ago when I looked, the
yep.
prices were decent, but they weren't like the best of deals. And now some of those same waterfront views are like way less. So I'm like, okay, I'm glad I waited. Last minute.
Listen. So, like, so we saw that CPI data came in as unchanged. So, there was an expectation from Wall Street. I think we saw the highest consensus was at 3.4% in CPI data, and then the lowest was at 3.2. So, we pretty much came in at unchanged. And then, of course, if you remove some of the other, the things that fluctuate, like for example, energy and food, then it came in. I think it was at like 3.2%. So
Well, just for those like that are new that are tuning in and you're like CPI, what? Consumer price index. So
Yes.
we're just talking about like the price of goods and how that can relate to inflation and what things are costing, what things are stable, what are lagging indicators. So just so you all keep up.
Speaking of which, because you're getting a lot of love over here in the chat, by the way.
Oh,
Beverly
I haven't looked at
says,
the chat. What
"Love
y'all
the
talking about?
hair, Jolene."
What y'all talking about?
Look, and
Oh,
then we
thanks,
also
y'all.
had Abby also at the same time saying,
Hey,
"Love your
Chris.
hair, Jolene." So,
Well,
hey,
there's a
yo,
story. There's a
is there
story.
any is there any hope for a guy? Just kidding. You know what? 2024, I'm gonna bring back wave check. Watch, you're gonna see a wave check. Hit Mark Monroe.
Mark, just take those vitamins. But no, I'm coming fresh off a photo shoot in Houston, and so I was like, I need to keep the hair. Um, so it in the photo shoot, it actually was different. It was styled differently. But this was what was left after a night of like sleeping. So
Well,
yeah,
kudos to you. It looks good
yeah,
on you.
thanks.
It looks
No, I
good
like it.
on
I like
you.
big hair. I like big hair now, so I'm gonna do more big hair. But like anyway, back to
Yeah, y'all saw that shade. Like where she said take vitamins, but we gotta let it. We got.
all you have to do, Mark.
Girl, I've been taking vitamins since I don't know how
You better
long.
get that blessed oil.
Look, I'm like Missy Elliott. I grease my hair and it still don't grow. So, all right, so let's talk about it, shall we?
Yeah.
By the way, if you didn't know what song that came from "Here We Come" by Timberland and Magoo. By the way,
Well,
all
maybe.
right,
Yeah.
all right. So let's check it. So CPI data came in at unchanged, or pretty much like showing that okay, we're still coming down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess the number one question, if you saw the thumbnail, hey,
This is hilarious. Jerome Powell flying a plane looking super
can
suspect.
I just ask a question? Can I just ask a question though,
What's the
for real, for real?
question? What's the question?
How's his landing? I
We're
mean,
gonna
like
find out.
his flying was a little turbulent. I ain't gonna lie, and especially like 2022, it was very turbulent. I didn't think that we were gonna make it. I was gonna have to throw on
So,
some John P. Key, but
Mark,
now,
not the Johnson team. Mark, so okay, remember how you were talking? I don't know if this could have been earlier. This could have been a text message. I don't remember, but you were talking about the transitory
mm-hmm.
inflation that we're coming back. So remember when all that talk was happening, right? And
Yep.
then that wasn't the case, but all the decisions were made based off of transitory inflation. And so now that word is coming back. Now, is this a repeat of what happened, or are we now really seeing what that transitory inflation looks like?
I think that we're definitely starting to see transitory is the name of the is going to definitely be the headliner story, and it's definitely going to start hitting news waves where we start hearing more of that conversation hit.
Mm-hmm.
Where they're probably going to say like you're going to see like certain news pundits that are going to say like okay, hey, on one side, um, yeah, is it really still transitory? And then there's going to be the other side that's going to look at it from the standpoint of if you're looking at it over a long term period,
Mm-hmm.
then yes, it is transitory. But technically, anything over a long term period can be transitory, especially when you're looking at, over a 2 year, 3 year time horizon, then clearly it's going to be transitory. Now, the question is, it's transitory to what? Like, okay, we're coming out of inflation, and then, we kind of have been sitting here somewhat in a stagflation environment, so to speak, where we're just kind of like doing absolutely nothing. And then, which is probably setting up an interesting tone for a deflationary environment. Now, in some particular areas, Jolene, we're
Mm-hmm.
actually seeing deflationary like process take place. Like, for example, you saw deflation take place in the PC market, and that was early on, where it's like, okay, hey, PC sales were kind of like, meh. And now you're starting to see the same type of activities take place within the automobile section of like, hey, ain't nobody buying these cars, so pretty soon you're gonna start seeing that like, okay, hey, time to drop these prices, like, cause
Mm-hmm.
look, I've been seeing like certain vehicles on YouTube where they're talking about like Ford like pickup trucks being sold for like $80,000, $75,000, and I'm like, who's gonna buy that at what interest rate for an
It
auto
won't be
loan.
me. It won't be me.
Like for real.
But
So I go ahead, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, so with that, so if we're looking at the detransit or excuse me, detransitory, the deflation, right?
She
So
created a new phrase, y'all. Trademark it.
coming down, I just want people to realize, like, when it's transitory, just think high inflation but short lived, like very, very short, like a
Yeah.
blip. But we're not when that word first hit the scene a couple, years ago, or was that last year, Mark?
Listen, it's
All the
been talked
time
about
has
for about a
collapsed.
year and a half.
Okay,
So
all the time has collapsed. Like for me, it's collapsed. So
I'm like the MCU. Which timeline are we in?
right, like we're all in these parallel universes. But anyway, so it was temporary and short lived, and we all felt it. You all know that my main indicator would be the Trader Joe's hash browns. Them joints have not come down, but they've remained steady.
Okay.
So I'll check, sometime this week or next week and see if it's gone up. But
Okay.
as my own indicator, which is, that's the best indicator that you could really use. You can set up your whole portfolio based. I'm just kidding. Do not do that. I'm just joking.
I
But
was gonna say.
just joking. But okay, so if we start to look at things now moving deflationary, like what is the economic impact for consumers as well as investors when we look at these different types of inflation
So
coming into the forefront?
and I talked about this a while back when we were doing our shows. I think I've said it a few times, and then I've also did it on the Apple video where I said, in a deflationary environment, you start to see certain things. So, for example, you may see higher sales growth, but at the same token, prices come down. So, in order for or profit margins come down. So, we're already starting to see that certain profit margins are starting to be cut when people are starting to cut back on prices. So that's something to really much pay attention to, because in order to keep certain volumes up, then essentially they're going to have to cut pricing in order to appease the U.S. consumer, and even in some cases the global consumer. Um, there's one. I would definitely be watching the U.S. dollar though moving forward. That's something that a lot of folks aren't really paying attention to, and though that we're seeing that, we're seeing other countries at like 33-year lows. Like Japan hit
Mm-hmm.
another low. Like China, like
Again,
I
yeah.
don't know. I don't know. And then on top of that, it's like, in comparison to the US dollar, especially if you're looking at your consumer base, and if you're having to buy things. And what kind of dawned on me, Jolyn, we spoke about this a long time ago, where I
Okay.
talked about like the price of goods sold in the United States are one price, and the price of
Mhm.
goods, that same price of goods sold in another country, is completely different. And
Well,
the best barometer is Apple, if you look at it.
oh, I do remember you saying that, and like it's
Because I
funny
said
you
like
bring that up.
it, yeah, because it's interesting, because if you take like a MacBook, like let's take the MacBook, right?
Hmm.
And if you have a MacBook that's being sold for like, let's say, $1,900 here in the U.S. or $1,800 here in the U.S. And I actually did this, like, I actually looked at this. So because I was looking at a MacBook for one of our software engineers at FTC, and it's actually funny, if you buy it in India, it actually costs $2,300 USD.
Oh no, that's not cool. It's
So, so you're seeing the cost of goods in certain areas they're going up, and then in
hmm
certain areas they're coming down. So it's going to be very interesting to see exactly how it plays out. Now, of course, that's also due to like foreign exchange issues and everything else. So if you're looking at a higher exchange rate, then you're going to probably have to pay more in order to appease that exchange rate as it pertains to U.S. dollars. The conversion, the taxes that are also baked into that as well. So there's a lot more that goes into that story. So I don't want you to just think that it's just one thing.
But Mark,
Um,
I do want to say though, if because I talked about this in a whisper this weekend, talking about the U.S. dollar and its power and dominance as a reserve, as the global reserve currency, and so if you want to learn more about that, but like at a relaxed pace, financial chill,
oh,
have a glass.
where you're trying to whisper some wealth to us.
Yeah, you can watch that on our the latest show, the newest show on the Come Up series, where it's called Whispered Wealth, and really it's just a way to learn about different topics that have to do with primarily money, and primarily like the US dollar and all the economic indicators and impact of that. But like in
Hmm.
a really relaxed, financially chill zone. So, and it takes a smaller piece of information and just kind of expands upon it, with very relaxed, calm tone. So it's not, it's pretty zen. So yeah, you want to check that out. There'll be a new one
Okay.
coming. There's a new one coming, Mark.
Keep them coming. Keep them coming. Like, honestly, it's you're Jolene's out here trying to replace the Calm app, so go for it. I mean,
Hey, my favorite on the Calm app is Tamara Levitt. Her voice, that her voice is golden. So that's my inspo.
okay.
You know,
Well, one day I'm actually gonna shoot a video where
mhm,
I'm just gonna show for an hour and a half, where I'm
mhm.
either just like working and studying, and then that way you guys can just like follow along with me. I'm gonna try to get in
Now,
that ASMR vibe like with you.
okay, so Mark, when you do that, people also need to come up with like their own plan of what, instead of just having it on the background, like literally use that time, like when that episode drops, like use that time to study, like do
Yeah.
your own studying, but just have, have Mark in the background.
Hey, hey, hopefully I'm soothing enough, and hopefully the vibes and the music that I'm playing is actually pretty legit. So we'll see how it all plays
You
out.
have good music taste.
I
That last
try,
song you just sent me, the day last
Hey,
song, I like that one.
I do what I can. I do it for the children. All right, all right. Okay, so we got something interesting. Like, let's talk
Mhm.
about what we've heard in the news lately. So one of the
Which part,
interesting
Mark?
things. Look, listen. What I posted on my Twitter, look, listen, if you were living under a rock or if you don't follow me on Twitter, that's fine. But I saw something that was very disturbing.
Hmm.
This isn't really newsworthy for me or really for the come up series, but it really like begs the question. And, for each and every single one of our, viewers and the folks in whom which that are on the journey with us here at the come up series, I'm issuing out a challenge, in the sense of whether it's in your communities or whatever it is. Take the opportunity if you can, to mentor youth. I want, in 2024, it would be great for everybody who follows us to at least mentor 5 youth. Just mentor 5 youth. They could be your own nieces and nephews. They could be your cousins. They could be, say, for example, the kids at in your neighborhood, whatever it is. But I just want people to just assign 5 people just assign yourself to 5 people and literally be an example in their lives. Like, that's it. And it's like, people think that in order to be an example, you have to be, super wealthy or whatever it is. No, like some of the greatest heroes and sheroes are the folks in whom which that are like the neighborhood heroes that ultimately inspired us to just be better.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I just issue that out to everybody. Just 5 youth in 2024. If you can, start January 1st and just mentor them for a whole year. And the one thing I want you to do is I want you to document the day of, like, so just write it down, like what happened and everything else. And then at the close of next year, I want you to also see exactly where they are a year now that you've been in their lives. And the goal is that you should bring value, because the video that I saw on Twitter was very disheartening, seeing, kids, I guess they were at some type of celebration or birthday party,
Hmm.
and, playing music that they didn't even understand any of the context to. And on top of that, like, just, flash an imagery of things in which that honestly is just a fallacy. There should be no kid out there flashing a gun and, loads of money and everything else. That's not what wealth is. Wealth isn't flashing money. Wealth isn't, having, 9 millimeters in your hand and thinking that that's cool. It's not. I mean, there's nothing cool about essentially, you know, beating down somebody, or essentially, stepping over someone else in order for and having them feel the pain in order for you to ultimately become successful. That's not the way that it is. And so, honestly, that was really disheartening, and it really made me sit back and ask myself, did I really even, cause any significant change, and what is it that I'm doing? Thank you to the folks in whom which that reached out and actually gave me some words of encouragement, because honestly, your boy was really struggling. But there's that. So that was that was that, and that kind of inspired me to like essentially issue out a challenge, and let's spread that good message and spread that good, that scholarliness that we all carry here at the Come Up series, and just mentor 5 youth. That's it, just 5 youth. If you do more, kudos to you. You're a rock star. And if you're already mentoring youth, I mean,
Yeah.
challenge those youth that you mentor to go out there and essentially be an example to other younger youth as well while you're still mentoring them. It doesn't stop. Like, success is found in duplication, so keep it going. All right, so let's talk about some of the things that we're kind of hearing in the news, shall we?
Yeah. Let's get into it.
All right, so but before we do that, somebody says, Mark, please explain why the U.S. dollar is so strong when I exchange while vacationing overseas. I'm not complaining, just want to know why. Okay, so well, first things first.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on where you're vacationing,
For one.
the global economy is definitely starting to struggle. Now, of course, you're starting to see that there are some economies that are in recession right now as we speak. If you look at Europe, or especially in the UK, there's a lot. They're definitely in recession.
Exchange rates.
And if you look at the exchange rates as it pertains to what's happening, I mean, of
Mm-hmm.
course, those things are gonna play out. Of course, a strong U.S. dollar is a signal as it pertains to a stronger U.S. or a stronger economy. Now, don't get me wrong. I sometimes look at, hey, we're $34 trillion in debt, and how is it that that is a signal for strength? Well, I mean, when you look at the price, or when you look at the amount that the United States pays as it pertains to its debt payment, I think it's $776 billion. But meanwhile, you got companies out here bringing in $100 billion worth of
Mm-hmm.
revenue on a quarterly basis. And then on top of that, it's like you also look at things like, when you're paying such a very cheap price as it pertains to repaying that debt versus what's coming in. I mean, those are some interesting tools and that's the thing. It's like, how many countries have an Apple? How many countries have a Microsoft? How many countries have like the Magnificent Seven? Not very many. Now, of course, these companies do tons of business in all these other countries, but where does that money come back to? Right here in the good old United States, unless they choose not to repatriate their cash. But even then, it's like, okay, at any point in time they could repatriate that cash, aka bringing it back into the United States economy, and then ultimately that money gets flooded through the system. And then on top of that, you got a ton of American banks that are essentially doing trillions of dollars worth of activities on a daily basis that work with tons of global economies. Now, of course, China's real estate market, that's a major hurting point. When you look at Japan's recession as it pertains to its talent, and also as it pertains to jobs out there,
Mm-hmm.
hurting. When you look at what's happening in UK, bad monetary policy, bad moves across the board, and essentially the economy has like literally been hit. And then of course you look at other countries that are neighboring many of those, that rely on, say, for example, trade, and whether it's import export, and then how much of those are being interrupted either by climate change or by wars, or invasions, if you want to still call it that. Those things all play a role, and they can hit certain countries that can literally like suck the life out of them like almost immediately. And so I think that that's one of the things in which, that when you look at it as it pertains to a stronger US dollar, those are the things that are really playing out. Like, though that the United States economy is in, it's not in the most tip top shape, but at the same token, when you look at it in comparison to some of the other countries as it pertains now, if we had a real estate bubble that just like busted, like we saw in 2007, 2008, we'd be
Mm-hmm.
sitting there right along with some of the other economies. Now, the other thing that we're looking at is like consumer debt, but what is that, 1 point something trillion dollars?
Well, it did increase.
US, at the rate at what we're spending right now, they spend that for breakfast. So,
An expensive
but
omelets.
I mean, look, listen, you like the other part is that people in those countries are also not spending as much as they used to either. So that's also that's also
And the
signs of a
gap.
slowing down economy.
And the
Say that
gap.
again.
And the gap between the haves and the have-nots is
Is also
is
very much so wide.
widening. Like, I just looked up China's their exchange rate. So for $1, that's 7.25 in yuan, and then for the euro, it's 92 cents. So the dollar is weaker than the euro. Um, and then the British pound for $1, that's only 80 cents for the British pound. And then I had
Things
to
just
look
cost
up,
more.
yeah, I had to look up Jamaica. One moment, please. Jamaica for $1, it's $155. $155 and like 44 cents. I remember when it was like 80. Now it's 155.
So here's the thing that I always tell people, and I'm going to send everybody home with some homework so that we can kind of get an idea of what the cost of capital looks like. So that way you can understand what the pressure looks like, and then we're going to get back to some of those what we saw in the news.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so and somebody said in Guyana it's $200 for $1. So
Wow.
yeah, interesting. So take for example, what I want you to do is I want you to go back, and if you really can, go back to 20, think about like if you had $1,000 in 2018.
Okay.
How far would that $1,000 stretch out over a span of, if you had to stretch out that $1,000 over a span of a week? If you had to stretch out $1,000 over a span of a week, how long could you make that last? Or how far could you even go with
Mm-hmm.
$1,000 back in 2018? Now, how we know this is many of you have online banking, so you can go back to 2018 and see exactly, like, just go back and look at your transactions over 2018 and see exactly how much did it take for you to add up to $1,000 over a period of time. Now, what I want you to do is in 2023, look at your spending and look at
Mm-hmm.
how fast, like, you can literally spend $1,000 and how fast it goes. Like, think about, like, even if you had $100 back in 2018, what that would be able to purchase if you went grocery shopping versus being able to go grocery shopping now in 2023.
Oh my gosh. The cart, every time you think you're doing your week's worth of groceries, you'll have enough to go through the express lane, 15 items or less. Okay, before you couldn't do that. 15 items or less, okay?
Okay, so let's transition this real quick, shall we? Let's
Yeah.
talk about what's happening in Canada. So there was a news about
Hmm.
there was news talking about that there's a lot of talent that's looking to flock towards Canada.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Jolene? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we talked about it earlier, and it's cheaper in
Mm-hmm.
Canada. The dollar is worth 137 in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Their housing is cheaper. Um, well, when I it's cheaper than Seattle. It's cheaper.
I don't know. It's look, girl, it's getting up there. Like you got locals that are being priced out.
Okay, well,
Yeah, like look,
I'll have to look
it's
into that. But last I checked,
well,
It was Seattle. Seattle costs more than, and I'm thinking of like Vancouver. I don't know nothing about Toronto, but
okay,
I'll
that's
maybe
fair.
I'll look at the averages. But if we're looking at losing talent, like highly skilled workers, that's going to
Yep,
cause a problem in our jobs economy.
it's starting to happen now. So, for example, remember that thing where we were talking about inflation and everything else, and remember
Hmm.
when Chairman Powell was where he was on Capitol Hill, being interrogated. I mean, being interviewed by senators. Um, it was very, very interesting. Remember when he had that back and forth with Elizabeth Warren,
Hmm.
and she was like, hey, I don't trust you with the U.S. economy because you're saying that we're going to lose about 4 million jobs in order to get this right.
What's happening?
Those layoffs, like people would think that, okay, hey, it's due to inflation, and then on top of that they would think that it's due to like housing and stuff like that are making huge choices. I mean, look at the United States H-1B visa program.
Hmm.
H-1B visa has literally been decimated. We haven't even heard anything about it. Once upon a time we were bringing in so many skilled workers through the H-1B visa program. And you have to think about it. There's only 20,000 that literally go through that lottery, or about 25,000 that literally
Mhm.
go through. And it's super competitive because not only are you competing against other small and medium-sized businesses, but you're also competing against corporations as well that are much larger. So there's that part. And then on top of that, there's also this thing as it pertains to layoffs. So if people are getting laid off here in the U.S., but yet at the same token, there's opportunity that's flocking over there to Canada. Look, listen, people go where the jobs go. It's
Yeah.
just like when people vote. People don't vote based upon, like, some people vote based upon party lines, but we did this episode a while back ago where we said that people vote based upon their interests, and it's really six things. Now, if you really want to go back and check out that episode, we'll probably throw it in the description down below if we can find it. But pretty much, where it's like you're gonna vote based upon the things in which that are within your nucleus of your life and based upon your interests, the things that matter to you. So in the same way, it's like, people are going to go where the opportunities are for them to ultimately get paid. And if the US economy is having issues, and where we're seeing that, especially within the tech sector, where we're seeing massive, where we've seen massive layoffs, and there's still layoffs that are still happening. I mean, they say one person's garbage is another person's treasure, though that the talent isn't really garbage. It's just, becoming like a diamond to somebody else. So,
Yeah.
you know,
So
it's getting very interesting out here.
okay, so Mark, if we talk about like all of the all the different indicators, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we're looking at that visual. We just look at the thumbnail for this video of
Mm-hmm.
Jerome Powell flying the plane, looking scared or like whatever. Um, what? How is that going to impact like end of year, um, and the different sectors? My top favorite three sectors. Um,
Consumer discretionary,
Consumer,
tech.
XOY, tech, XOK, and then my bay, SMH. But
Well, that's still tech, though. That's still
I
tech.
know, but like I like to put it in its own special category.
Oh
But
God.
communications. Um,
Okay, that's fair. Okay, so I see with the Meta and the Googles of the world, or the Alphabets of the world. I see what you're doing over there with a T-Mobile, a splash of T-Mobile.
I
Like,
need to talk.
just imagine if you like literally created like your stock portfolio in the form of a cocktail, saying
Hmm.
I'll have a Tesla with a splash of Apple. All right, let's take a look at it. So I think that the soft landing and what we're seeing. Let's look at some of what the data says. Okay, so one, Wall Street is definitely hedging against oil or energy, like that,
Hmm.
big time. We're also seeing that in certain areas that natural gas is falling. So if you haven't been paying attention, go check out the gas pump and see exactly if prices are changing in the area that you are. I mean, we live in Washington State, where it's very expensive for internal combustion engine drivers.
Right,
Where
gas was less than $2.50 in Texas. Well, specifically Houston, where I was this weekend.
Yeah,
I
I
have not seen
mean,
prices that low for gas.
I know. Whereas up here, it's about $4.62 or $4.82. So I
That's
mean, go
also having
figure.
tax too, though. There's a big
Yeah.
tax, big tax in that.
Yeah. So, but then the other thing is, we're watching the 10-year Treasury, and the
Hmm.
10-year Treasury dropped significantly after we've been getting report after report. So, first thing that made the 10-year Treasury drop was when Fed Chairman Powell and company said what they said. Okay, well, that was just like, a little bit, you could say that that's a little bit of hyperbole. Okay, so let's look a little bit further. Then we saw the 10-year Treasury recently drop on the eve of CPI inflation data coming in, pretty
Hmm.
much unchanged. Now, I'm a little weary of that, because that could either say that, okay, if we came in unchanged, did we flatten out and then we could possibly be seeing a spike up? Or is this like, normally when you're landing, it's like, you see that stabilization and then essentially you drop down again, where you're saying like there's levels to this? all the while, the biggest thing that I'm going to be looking at is now that I saw CPI inflation, PCE is going to pretty much fall in line. So the
Mhm.
thing I'm going to be looking at next is the unemployment rate. So I think the unemployment rate came up to, what was it, 3.8, 3.9%. So if it's at 3.8, I'm expecting a 3.9%. If it's at 3.9%, I'm expecting us to get to 4. Now, I actually had us forecasted to get to 4% unemployment by the end of this year, but I mean, things happen. Things were a lot more stronger than I expected, which is fine.
Mhm.
But at the same token, it's like I still believe that that's going to be the major benchmark. And then on top of that, looking at housing data. Like I said, housing data was a thing that was lagging for at least a solid 6 to 9 months. And now we're starting to see the data hit from October that is letting us know that the housing data is starting to look a little bit weaker. We're starting to see the cracks in the armor. So with that being said, okay, the Fed also brought in monetary policy where they started doing a lot of the tightening as a percent. So okay, think about it like this. When you think about quantitative easing, so for folks, if you've never seen any of our videos before, if you never heard anything about these things in economic landscape, so let's break them down quickly for you. When you think about quantitative easing, that's literally the Fed's way of flooding the system with cash.
Mhm.
So flooding banks with cash and ultimately stimulating the economy for people to go out there and buy stuff and also to borrow money, and ultimately the economy gets rolling, right? Because 9 times out of 10, if the United States government was giving away money, just like when people get their refund checks from the IRS,
Mhm.
majority of them already spend it. It's already spent. So there's that.
Scam.
Look, so now your economy has like now been like stimulated where essentially, okay, hey, it's that idea that, okay, hey, if we flood the system with cash and then essentially banks are more open to lending and then essentially interest rates probably come down a little bit so that way things are a little bit more lax, then what does that say? Well, people are going to want to borrow money more, which they're going to spend that money in which that they borrow, and then they'll probably even spend a little bit more money to ultimately get the economy going even further, because you're not really stimulating anything if you put money into the system and essentially the exact same money that goes out is pretty much, it's kind of like a wash at that point.
Mhm.
So there's that part. So then we look at this other thing on the other side, right, called quantitative tightening. So we have QE, quantitative easing, and then we have quantitative tightening. So in quantitative tightening, that's like us saying, like, okay, I'll put it in simpler terms for folks. So I'll first give you the term, and then I'll make it plain for you. So that's
Mhm.
the way where they're saying, okay, hey, we flooded the system with cash. All right, now there's some rules here. We're going to tighten. So then we're going to take some of that cash out of the system. Thus, when we start taking the cash out of the system, now it becomes like money starts to become a little bit more scarce. So what does that look like? Let's make it simple. Let's say that, okay, Beyonce's hosting a concert for her world tour or whatever it is, and she floods the system with, let's say that she gives away 25,000 tickets for free.
Mhm.
She just stimulates the economy with 25,000 free tickets to her concert. And then all of a sudden, everybody's just like, well, they don't know. But then if they didn't, then they're going to be like, well, there's 25,000 tickets that came out. So then again, it's like, okay, well, all right, that was the quantitative easing part. Now, everybody's gotten all the 25,000 folks around the world got their tickets. Now Beyonce is like, okay, I need my ticket. Like, I need my money. Like,
I'm leaving here with something.
run me, run me my money. I'm from around the way. I'm leaving with something. And so then now what happens is you start to see that those tickets are still starting to get scarce, but everybody wants to go to the concert. So again, you start to see prices tick up, and the requirements as it pertains to getting those tickets starts to creep up as well. So when you look at it from like when during the quantitative easing period, a lot of folks were out there getting business loans, or they were getting, home loans, or they were getting refinances when interest rates were ridiculously low. When quantitative easing, or when things started to tighten up in monetary policy, when banks started to get in a little bit more tight as it pertains to what they were going to allow people to borrow, now it's like it comes with some rules. Okay, yeah, you want to borrow $100,000? All right, well, interest rate used to be let's say 3%. Now it's at 6%. Or your home loan that was once upon a time 3.5% is now at 8%. And then
Mhm.
on top of that, it's like, okay, well, there's also some requirements here. Like if you have a business, all right, we're gonna have a little bit more stringent ruling as it pertains to our collateral of what we expect to come back to get from you in order to give you this loan. You see, we're getting a little bit more stringent. The rules are getting a little bit more tighter because of the fact that the money itself is getting tight. And that's
Mhm.
ultimately what it looks like when you start seeing a tightened monetary policy. Now, of course, Treasury yields start to creep up, which also like starts to impact borrowing. And then on top of that, look at what's happening in the automobile industry. So automobile industry, it's not to say that nobody wants to buy the cars. It's just that nobody wants to spend $700 or to about $1,000 just to pay a car note. Like that just doesn't make any sense. The math just doesn't math. And so hence the reason why you see a lot more people leasing vehicles and you see a lot more people holding on to their existing vehicles. Just like you see in the housing market. You see a lot of existing homeowners that were willing to sell their homes, but then when they started seeing, okay, hey, if I sell my home, but then I got to go buy another home, now I'm selling this home in which I'm only paying like, let's say 3%, 2% on this interest rate. And then I'm going to sell this home to literally go pay 8% or 7% on this home. Absolutely not. And
Cause
keep
it's
in
been on,
mind, the inventory is still low within the housing market. So
right?
as it pertains to available houses to buy. So
Mm-hmm.
inventory is low. And then ultimately what you're going to see is the fact that people are not going to sell their homes until they probably see an interest rate of about 5% in mortgages. Between 5 to 6%, that's going to be really the sweet spot where it starts to make people start to really get up and want to move from their homes. And that's what it looks like in a tightening period. You start to see that jobs start to get cut because of the fact that they need to cut back on their spending in order
Mm-hmm.
to essentially be able to weather any particular storms. Then on top of that, you start to see the companies that were like really much so like they spend a lot of money, so they're like, you know, pretty much instead of cash cows or cash hordes, you know, they're just leaking cash.
Mm.
And so those are the companies that ultimately like literally struggle the most. So if you're looking at it, like that's really what it means when we see that policy has tightened up and everything else. So just pay attention for that. So when we talk about soft landing, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that's where it's really going to get very interesting for the rest of the market.
Well, we'll have to pay attention.
Yeah.
So what are the, especially I'm just thinking of like new people. What are some of the places resource wise folks can go to kind of keep their eye on this?
I mean, if you want to pay attention to the auto market, pay attention to of course, the big autos, like for example, Ford, GM, and of course, Tesla. I mean, I think Tesla is the best example because you see that they're cutting back on prices and ultimately it's starting to impact their profit margins. So again, it's like in a tightening period when people are not going to buy cars because those auto loans are ridiculously high as it pertains to percentage, then it's going to affect the sales of the car. So you have to drop the price of the car in order to kind of like create some equilibrium balance between what is it that I'm buying versus what is it I'm going to have to pay on a monthly basis in order to the cost of ownership for the car. So that's an easy way to look at it. Also look at, say, for example, real estate for sure. So pay attention to companies like Zillow and Redfin. They do a very good job of giving you an idea. And then, of course, if you want to look at, you know, commercial properties where you saw that there's still a lot of vacancies in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of commercial real estate, you know, look at Simon Properties. You can, I mean, they would be probably a good read as it pertains to economics of what's happening amongst the industry, and of course, like you have your Airbnbs of the world as well. Let's see here. If you're looking at within spending, right? So, like
Mm-hmm.
if you're looking at enterprise spend, then pay attention to like data services, cloud, cybersecurity, those types of companies. Pay attention to those. If you want to look at what's happening as it pertains to consumer markets, pay attention to wholesalers like Costco. Pay attention to retailers like Target and Home Depot. So Home Depot just recently reported earnings, solid beat, but they gave a little bit of a gloomy look as it pertains to their guidance. Now, if it wasn't for CPI data coming out, then we probably would have seen Home Depot in the negative. So there's that.
Okay.
Um, so, you know, everywhere you look, you got to look at it in the sense of, okay, hey, whose business model is going to be impacted? So we know exactly how their business models work, how, aka, how do they make money?
Mm-hmm.
And then essentially looking at how does the economics in which that you're hearing about, how does that impact how they make money? So, for example, anybody whose pockets are starting to get light, you know, that's a challenge. Anybody whose pockets are getting fat, even in the midst of, you know, economic uncertainty or economic issues, you know, those are the ones to really pay attention to.
Good stuff.
I do what I can. I do what I can. All right. So I know that we went a little bit further on the line, but you know, hopefully, you know, everybody, you got some good information from this. And one of the things that I want to look at into next year, Jolene,
Hmm.
Since we were talking about like UK and Europe, wouldn't
Yeah.
it be interesting if we actually go to UK and Europe? Like maybe hit London or something like that next year.
I mean, I would be down. London is not one of my favorite places. Just I like places that have like really great food. London
Mm.
doesn't strike me as a place that knows about seasonings, to be quite frank. So yeah. But other than that, like definitely anywhere in Europe. Like I'm excited to go to Portugal. Um,
Lisbon.
yeah, Lisbon, as the locals say, Lisbon. I'm excited to go to Lisbon. And well, oh, who is this? Him, the third. If England does have some good food spots, it's because of the other ethnic dishes that are out there. Ethnic.
We out there. It's because we
So
out
I mean,
there.
I could manage that for sure, and obviously, Jamaican food, of course. Um, Now I'm getting hungry. It's dinner time. But Mark, okay, so yeah, I would be down for international travel and like definitely visiting some of like the economic centers of some of these countries just to,
Yeah.
kind of be in that economic mix. That would be really fun. I would love to do that in South Africa as well, because that's my
Mm.
sport. That's my spot or whatever. So yeah, I would be down.
Okay. All
Let's
right.
put that on the file. Um,
We do. Oh, can I make should we make the announcement of like, like about some of our like, where the come up series is and
oh
giving an
yes,
update?
let's talk about it. 'Cause
I'll let you drop the bomb. But I want to give an intro like cuz
all right, you do the intro and then I'll say the rest.
I want to do an intro because honestly, y'all, we've been doing a lot here for the Come Up series, and it's been a great year. It's been a great ride for us on the live shows and everything else, and we've had so much fun. And we just feel like the Come Up series, yeah, 4 years. Can you believe it? Like, look, that's a college, like a whole college, like experience. And we hope that we gave you guys a great experience in this process, taking you from the pandemic, where it's like you were just, many of you were in homes by yourself and, you felt connected and everything else, and you were able to learn and feel like connected to this community. And the community is only getting bigger and it's only getting better. I mean, think about what is it that we've done this year? Like, for example, Lawrence and Tiara and on their Monday Night Take. And I think that honestly is going to be interesting when they start doing their own individuals, where Tiara starts talking more about like the employment and the recruitment space, and then Lawrence just continues to keep flourishing in what is it that he does. And of course you got Mark and Mo, where they're bringing a various array of different topics, which is amazing. And then of course Chris and Abby, and I'm probably sure that they're going to branch out even more to like widen the breadth as it pertains to content. Now I'm going to leave the next announcement for that one for Jolene, as it pertains to what's coming to the stage whenever she wants to introduce that. But I do have this one thing that I want to talk about. So in your own time, no pressure. Um, but one of the things that I want to talk about is the Come Up series has definitely gone through some things.
Mhm.
And I think that honestly, it's like it's time for us now to elevate. It's time for us to go even further and above and beyond.
Mhm.
Now, as you guys know, I am like, I do what I do at From the Culture on a daily, consistent basis. And one of the things that it bars me from doing is from sitting as CEO from any other company. It would just be a conflict of interest. But, have no fear, because the Come Up series definitely has someone in whom which that is way more than qualified and can definitely take what we're going to do to the next stratosphere. And you probably already know this person. Why? Because they're on the stage with me all the time. And that is none other than Miss
You know,
Jolyn GC in the place to be, who is now going to be CEO of the Come Up Series company starting in 2024. And I'm very much so excited, Jolyn, for the things in which that you were going to do. You got the full breadth of support here at From the Culture and what is it that we represent and everything else. So we're just happy to have you serving as CEO starting next year. Oh, you went mute now all of a sudden for some reason. Oh, see,
wait, can you hear me?
we can hear you now.
Okay, I accidentally pressed the wrong button. Okay, let me pop my ish for a moment. I'm just kidding. Let me calm down. But yes, y'all, you heard it here first. Jolene GC will be the GCEO of the Come Up series. GCO stands for Galactic Catalyst Elevating Others. So my mission with the Come Up series really is to uplift all the other creators on our channel. Like Mark said earlier, we have shows all throughout the entire week, different creators talking about different facets that will help you come up. And that's the whole premise of our channel. We've always, from the beginning, when we first started out, we wanted to talk about looking at the Come Up series as a network. So think of CNBC, think of NBC, think of, I don't even watch regular TV. It's all, streaming, but whatever those local channels are, like think of it like that with multiple shows and programming. And it is my desire in particular to build up the Black women that you see in this space because there's not that many of us. And it's just really important that this approach to wealth is balanced. That is really important to me. And you can see how, thank you so much, y'all. You can see what the vibe, you can see the rapport that Mark and I have built for the Come Up series. And you can see that the different rapport and the different relationships and everything on the other channels or on the other shows that are on our channel. So, the Tuesdays will always be, special and to Mark and I, but look out for us introducing other creators on our Tuesday nights. And so again, like part of my vision is to elevate all of the other creators together, kind of like locking arms in solidarity, and really showcasing the culture in a way that just speaks money, like just moneyed up, because this is our time. This is one of the best times in history when we're low key and then kind of high key going through a financial reset, if you will. This is the time for our culture, our people, our community, our come up cousins to come up, and not just in the stock market, also in private equity, in private businesses, in startups about to, do their first IPO. This is the time for us to take part and be pioneers and be innovators, disruptors, whatever you want to call us, invaders, all that in particular in the technology space where Mark is really passionate about. So think of the Come Up series, one, as a network of multiple content creators, and then also think about the Come Up series culturally as a way to, like, digitally, in a sense, lock arms to get this money, because there should be no reason that as creative and as talented of a people that we are, that there should be struggle in any Come Up cousin's life. It just should not be. And we're only so many people, but together we all legion. Just kidding. But like it's just, I just feel really strongly about where we can go, and really that involves all of us. So some of the things that are coming down the pike, now we're talking in startup. Yeah, that's right, Jar. That's right. So some of the things that you will see, you may see a fluctuation in our live broadcasting. Like the lives are really for us to just, kind of check in, what's tea like in real time, right? But the shows, the we call it pre-recorded content, but some of the other videos that we make that are not live and then we publish those, you will see other creators doing more of that. So as we kind of talked about earlier, started a new series and trying out new things, right? And the intersection of wealth and ASMR, and what does that look like, right? And so as we're looking at that, a lot of it has to do with, well, one thing I was telling Mark, I was like, dang, based on the feedback, y'all can't hear. And the majority of our Come Up cousins are millennial. Like if you look at our stats, they're millennial, right? And 10% of millennials in the US have hearing loss. So I took that feedback, and now I'm kind of I'm going in this direction of making quote unquote anti-ASMR videos. So they're louder, there's music. They're just not the traditional ASMR video. So it's more so like we're chilling with our on the finance side. So my energy is not going to be like this. It's going to be real calm. The voice is like low and slow. Some of y'all, may be seduced, and that's okay. That is okay. The point is, the point is that you will be learning at a very calm, space. This is not my ASMR voice. I actually have an ASMR voice. I'm really proud of it. Anyway, so that's that. Mark is going to keep coming with the fire. So do not fret. And it looks like he will be doing something with the new.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you what is it that I'm going to be working on.
Let's hear about it.
So what I'm going to be working on is like, don't get me wrong, I love doing live videos and everything else, but at the same token, many times for a lot of folks don't realize I'm running from one thing to the other, which kind of like pulls me back from the creativity. Now that I won't be doing as many lives anymore, now I can actually pull back those layers and get back into my creative bag, where it's like Mark versus Mark, or Mark, literally doing, oh, here I go, talking in third person. Absolutely not. I get to do like tech reviews. Now, I'm a huge person of loving tech reviews. But, I'm no MKBHD, none whatsoever. I mean, he does a phenomenal job at reviewing tech, but I'm going to review tech the way is it that I see it, or I'm going to review things in the way that I see it fit. Like, for example, reviewing tech, but also giving it a market focus. Because why? I love tech, but I also love the markets. And those are the two things that will probably never leave me. I also want to bring on startups onto the show. What many of you don't know is that we've actually hosted one startup on our channel. And that one startup was able to raise $2.5 million just from being on the show. So I want to do more of that, where I bring on great startups, great entrepreneurs, and literally have them talk about and strut their stuff, so that way they can actually have something that's a living document or a living video that speaks to any VC out there that would be interested in investing in their projects. And those are some of the things in which that I'm going to be focused on very heavily in 2024. And of course, I'll be producing some of the things in the background where you probably may not see me, but I get to do some of the magic in the background. So
I'm gonna put you to work,
stay
Mark.
tuned.
I'm gonna put I'll have you editing and all kinds of stuff. Fun time.
Okay.
Oh, I do. I just asked Aisha about ASMR because someone was like, "What is ASMR?" So I'm gonna tell you what Aisha said, aka my girl ChatGPT. I call her Aisha. Okay. ASMR stands for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. In my world, ASMR stands for Autonomous Sensory Money Response. Like, what is your autonomous sensory response to money? That's what ASMR means over here at the Come Up series for Whispered Wealth. Okay, so forget about what you heard. All right.
We do have some surprises coming out, but we won't unleash those things today.
We gotta take our time. But
we gotta take our time.
The main purpose of ASMR really is to introduce relaxation and sometimes sleep. So it's to kind of take the financial stress out of learning about investing or learning about wealth building or whatever. So just think of it as like a chill reset. Wealth Rituals season 3 filming starts. That's a whole production. That's a different vibe, but Wealth Rituals season 3 starts. Our first day of filming is on Monday. So that's exciting. That's returning. We have a lot of fire content coming to the Come Up series.
And we're bringing equity to the creators, though. That's the other part. Yes. We're bringing equity to the creators. That's something that I don't think that any platform really provides. Like, all the other platforms are more so affiliate focused. But we want to focus on bringing equity, so that way essentially everybody can share a piece of the pie, like Jolene had said. And then the other parts of that is, we're thinking bigger. Like, we want to put content that we produce on larger screens, on even larger platforms, or in various different diverse platforms. So like the Netflixes of the world and the Amazon Prime Videos of the world, we definitely want to go there in 2024. So like I said, we got some stuff.
There's more in store in 2024.
But luckily, it's all on Jolene.
It is on me, and we are ready to run amok in these financial streets, y'all. I hope you're ready. Lace up.
Yeah. So Yeah, we just did a lot, and we got to get up off of here because
I
if not,
know. You know I'm hungry.
look. I up and spilled like all the beans of what's like expected in 2024. So thank you guys for rocking with us. We hope that you guys enjoyed today's show, and on top of that, the announcements as well as the discussion. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because we definitely want to hear what you have to say. If you got questions, we'll try our best to also respond to those questions, and also, like I said, we'll see you guys around in the next one. Possibly next Tuesday, Jolene. We'll be here next Tuesday, right? Okay. All
Yes.
right. So,
Sorry.
without further ado, we'll see you guys in the next one. I'm Mark Monroe.
And I'm Jillian GC, and the place to be, aka GCO, the new galactic catalyst, elevating others, aka CEO of the Come Up series.
And we'll see you guys next week. Be sure to watch The Red Line with Abby and Chris. And on top of that, check out Mark and Mo on Thursdays.
Yes.
Peace, y'all.